They told me this line was only for premium passengers, and I didn't even flinch. You know why? Because when you've spent your whole life being told you don't belong, you learn not to waste energy proving yourself. You let the silence do the heavy lifting. It happened on a morning that should have been ordinary. JFK, Gate 17. I was there on business, nothing flashy. Just a speech at a food sustainability summit and a $48 million contract in my bag. My name, Celeste Morgan, printed cleanly on a first-class boarding pass. But that didn't stop the young woman at the counter from eyeing me like I'd walked into the wrong room. No smile. Just that line. This lane is for first-class passengers. I looked her dead in the eye and said, I know. She froze. Maybe it was the way I said it. Calm, confident. No explanation, no panic. Just fact. Still, she didn't scan my ticket. She asked for ID, then flagged security. I didn't argue. I handed over my license, pulled out my phone, and made one call. Maggie, I said to my assistant, pull up the Horizon Air contract. Remind them who they're detaining. See, I'm not just a passenger. I'm the woman who rebuilt their in-flight meal program from the ground up. When social media tore Horizon apart over their prison tray food, I came in with farm-fresh tomatoes, biodegradable packaging, and a logistics plan that saved them millions. I didn't ask for a billboard. I asked for better food on every tray. That's it. But the woman at the counter, Haley, didn't know any of that. Or maybe she didn't want to know. All she saw was a black woman with a nice bag and a quiet stare. And in her mind, that didn't scream CEO. It screamed mistake. So she whispered into her radio. A guard showed up. He didn't say a word, just stood beside me like I was a threat. The passengers started whispering too. One guy said maybe my ticket was fake. Another muttered something about people trying to sneak in. And still, I stood there. Straight back. Steady breath. No tears, no rage. Because I knew. I've known since I was 9, walking beside my mama in Cleveland, helping her stock produce shelves before dawn. I knew when I built my company out of a garage in Dayton, making deliveries in the snow myself. I knew when I signed that contract with Horizon in a room full of executives who only started listening when I laid a cherry tomato on the table and said, smell that. That's the difference. I didn't raise my voice because I didn't need to. Power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just waits. Inside the system, alarms started going off. Maggie flagged the file. 3 executives got pinged. Cynthia Reyes, regional director at Horizon, dropped her coffee mid-meeting and bolted. Why? Because Celeste Morgan wasn't just a name on a spreadsheet. I was the backbone of their new brand promise. The Fresh Flight campaign? That's me. Their future? Me. By the time Cynthia showed up at the gate, I was still standing where they'd left me, boarding pass in hand, dignity intact. She approached me carefully, eyes wide, tone humble. Miss Morgan, I apologize. Let me escort you to the VIP lounge. I didn't move. I just asked, do you know what seat I was assigned? She nodded. 1A. Funny, I said. Someone just told me this line was for premium passengers. That hit. I didn't need to yell. That line alone was louder than anything I could have screamed. They invited me onto the plane like I was royalty. The flight attendant bowed. My name whispered through the cabin like an apology. Seat 1A was waiting, water chilled, napkin folded, not a wrinkle in sight. I sat. No smugness, just stillness. And everyone around me, they noticed. They didn't know exactly what had happened, but they knew something had shifted. The silence was different now. Not awkward, reverent. A young attendant came up and placed a handwritten note and a piece of chocolate on my tray. We don't know what they did, she whispered, but we saw it. And we're sorry. That meant more than any corporate memo. Meanwhile, back at Horizon, all hell was breaking loose. Flights delayed. Internal systems locked down. Reviews initiated. Haley Dorsey, the one who made the call, was nowhere to be seen the next day. And no one asked where she went. They already knew. But I didn't ask for her job. I didn't ask for her tears. I asked for the system to look at itself. To finally see the quiet ways it tells people like me. You don't belong. A week later, Horizon partnered with a civil rights group. Rolled out new bias training. Suspended Gate 17 for full re-engineering. Not one headline mentioned my name. But every insider knew why those changes were made. I didn't write a post. I didn't give an interview. But someone sitting nearby did. A quiet Reddit thread. A blurry photo. She made one phone call. It said, and the whole airport froze. And maybe that's all it takes sometimes. Not a protest, not a lawsuit. Just one moment where a black woman stands still long enough to make an entire industry question how it sees the world. So now I ask you, have you ever seen someone treated like they didn't belong just because of how they looked? What did you do? What would you do? Drop it in the comments. Let's not let the silence keep winning. Because silence might be dignified, but it's not always enough. See, that's the tricky part, right? People love to praise quiet strength after the fact. They love the calm hero, the composed woman, the gracious victim, as long as she doesn't make too much noise. As long as she doesn't disrupt their comfort too much. But let's be honest, what happened at that gate wasn't about a system glitch or an overworked employee. It was about a look, a hesitation, a decision made in 2 seconds flat that I didn't fit the part. And the truth is, I was lucky. Lucky that I had power, that I had Maggie on speed dial, a contract signed, names I could drop like hammers. Most people don't have that. Most women who get stopped at that gate, they just smile awkwardly, dig around for ID, and pray they get through without too much embarrassment. But what about the ones who don't? What about the girl headed to her grandmother's funeral in coach who gets pulled aside because her afro looks suspiciously big? What about the dad with the toddler and the backpack who's asked to step aside for a random screening while others walk past? What about them? You think they get a Cynthia Reyes running down a glass hallway to make it right? No, they get silence. But silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes silence is just the sound of a door being shut again and again. That's why this story matters. Not because it's about me, not because it went viral, but because it could have been anyone, and because next time it will be. Unless something changes. And that change doesn't start with a tweet. It starts with accountability. It starts with retraining the way we look at people, and I don't mean a PowerPoint about bias. I mean sitting in a room and being real about the quiet ways we exclude, diminish, and disrespect. I mean calling out the difference between procedure and prejudice with a clipboard. So here's what I want. Not sympathy, not claps, not even your agreement. I want your stories. I want the moments you saw someone get treated like they didn't belong. I want to know what you did or didn't do, and I want you to ask yourself what you'll do next time. Because there will be a next time. There always is. Someone will be judged by the shoes they wear, or the tone of their voice, or the curl in their hair. Someone will be stopped at a gate, or passed over in a boardroom, or misjudged at a checkout line. And when that happens, are you going to look away? Or are you going to stand still beside them? You don't need a contract in your bag to make a difference. You just need to not look away. Now, if you think this story matters, not just for airlines or business or food supply chains, but for how we live with each other, then share it. Let someone else see what it looks like when you fight power not with fists, but with presence. And next time you're at the gate, maybe hold the silence a little longer, just enough for the system to feel it. Because that's how real change begins.